Who we are, Modo25, Ask Bosco. So they are basically the same company, but we're split in two. Modo25 is the agency side of things, and Ask Bosco is our software side of things. They are separate. You don't have to work with the agency to buy the software side. In terms of where the name comes from, we get asked this a lot. So both Modo and Ask Bosco have meanings. So our founder is a bike riding company, and they raise money every year for an orphanage in Uganda. And that orphanage we also do like a salary sacrifice for, and we also do charity fundraising events for it. And I've actually been out to Uganda and been to the orphanage and met the people there. Really cool experience. But the names come from Modo is one of the children at the orphanage, and Bosco is the person that runs the orphanage. He's the day-to-day person there to make sure that it all runs effectively. So yeah, that's just a quick intro of who we are, I guess. So to get into the subject of what we're going to talk about, can you build a brand with just Google Ads? So I decided I wanted to do something that would be, I guess, a bit of a challenge, something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but is something that I think could potentially work. But first of all, I want to make sure we're all on the same, how I like to start our meetings. You don't have to read all this. This is a lot of words. This is actually from ChatGPT. So I cheated on this. And I asked ChatGPT, what is a brand? And I thought this was really an interesting output, actually. And I think one of the key lines in here is actually the values, the reputation, and the promises that a business conveys to its customers. So why do you buy from one brand and not another? There's a lot of similar brands out there. You know, there's a lot of clothes retailers, but you choose to buy from some rather than others. That's going to differ person to person, company to company. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting output. So I'm going to ask some questions generally to the audience, and there's no right or wrong answer. But let's say you're after a brand new laptop. Where would you buy your laptop from out of these three? So you can't see the bottom one too well, but that's Amazon. So you've got Apple, you've got Currys, you've got Amazon. Anybody feel free to shout out why would you buy from one of those and not the other?
Apple, because I've used it my whole life.
Yeah. And you'd buy an Apple computer directly from Apple rather than like an Apple computer from Currys. Why is that?
I just trust it.
Yeah, so it's trust. And yeah, you feel like you're going to get good service. Yeah. Interesting. Any other opinions on that? Currys. 2 for Currys there. Why Currys?
Comparing the different options.
Yeah, yes.
More options.
Yeah, more options. Lots of different choice. Yeah. No one Amazon. Interesting. Yeah, I thought Amazon might get up there because of their delivery options. But, you know, generally it's faster. You can get next day. It's free if you've got Prime. So yeah, there's, as you say, like there's a few different reasons why if I'm buying an Apple product, I tend to buy from Apple, like you say, because they make the product there. I should hopefully get the best service from them rather than a third-party seller. Currys, as you say, if you want to go in and discuss your options, you can go into a store, you can chat with someone. That's part of their whole ethos as a brand, is you can get the expertise from people in the store. And Amazon is convenience, right? It's quick, it's fast. You've got Prime, it comes the next day. That's nice. Next, this is a slightly different question. So rather than like, where would you buy a laptop, is like you want to buy any car and you've got a choice of these 3 sort of roughly equally priced brands. Which of these would you choose to buy from rather than another? Anyone?
Not Jaguar.
Not Jaguar. Why not Jaguar?
I've got the same swag.
Not the same swag. That's interesting, because that's a branding thing, right? Because why have they not got the same swag as the other two? Because they're similarly priced products. You've got generally same price for a Jaguar as you would pay for a Mercedes or BMW. But I think you're right. Like Jaguar's not seen as cool as the others. BMW's had sort of a strong last 10 years. Mercedes sort of picking back up again as well after sort of, they were the old man car for a bit, but they've also picked up, had a bit of a rebrand as well. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of reasons why you might choose any of these three. You might like the designs of one better than the other. They might represent something like swag more than the other. You know, you might go British. You might be a Jaguar and you're like, oh, I want a car that's made in Britain, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a few different options and everyone's going to have a different opinion on that, right? So some of you might be a Jaguar fan. So yeah, I just think it's useful to sort of get an idea of what branding is, what is brand, before we go into sort of the detail of this. Does anybody know what stock price this is? Feel free to take a guess. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. No. Tesla. No, it was close. But similar to Tesla's outcome, but this is Nike. You'll have seen a lot about them covered on LinkedIn recently with the new CEO and his job path and how they've been performing as a brand. The reason why they changed CEO is because of their overall performance. And yeah, basically over the course of this year, they tanked their share price. And they took an interesting approach to their brand. They made the move to direct to consumer rather than selling as much through, you know, people like JD Sports and things like that. They decided, okay, we can do this. We'll put more money into like paid search. And they did. They increased their paid search budget. 25% of their digital spend is just on Google Ads. Has this worked for their share price? No. Has it maybe worked from a profitability point? Possibly yes. But the reason why this share price is tanking is because they are seen as a less cool brand than maybe they were 5 years ago. And, you know, you'll see probably in this room a whole different range of footwear, but actually I don't see many Nikes. From just looking around right now, I don't see too many. And that's because, you know, people like On, Hoka, they've all started to eat into Nike's footwear brand because they're now seen as, you know, the shoes to have. New Balance have had a resurgence. They're no longer the dad shoe, or dad shoes are cool. So yeah, and then on sort of the athletic wear side of things, then you've also got Lululemon, who are seen as a much preferable brand to buy your sort of athletic leisure wear from. So I thought this was a really interesting quote that I read on an article on Forbes about Nike, which was, the problem has been that the leadership is focusing on how to sell, not who they're selling to. And I think that's definitely right. I think they've focused on how do we get things to people, direct to consumer, you know, how do we get people to buy through us? How do we get people to come to our store? But why were people buying Nike in the first place? It's because, you know, the Jordan 1 was a cool shoe. And it's because they had high quality footwear at one point, which was, you know, relatively affordable. It wasn't outrageously priced, but their prices have continued to get higher. Their quality is considered generally lower than it used to be. And they haven't got the range that they used to in terms of like trendy shoes. So that whole focus on getting people to come to us rather than making people come to us is, I think a very interesting subject. So this brings us all back to the original question, which, do I think it's possible to build a brand through Google Ads? And I think the answer to this is probably no. So that's it, that's the end, right? But I think you could have a really, really good stab at it, right? So let's talk about if you were in this situation and you were trying to build a brand with just Google Ads, and for some reason you've limited yourself to that and you hate every other channel and that's where you've got to. So what should you be doing? So I'm going to talk a little bit about things we've tested as an agency, observations we've made, things that we found that work, and some of the things we've seen Google doing recently. So we had an interesting chat at lunch actually, about do we think Google are going to be dominant forever? And I think the answer is probably they are going to lose some share, and I think they will gain share elsewhere. So like we talked about across lunch, children in school now are no longer talking about Googling things, they're talking about chatting things, and that's because they use ChatGPT. That's a big risk for Google. And I think they have started to acknowledge that risk because search is potentially going to transform, change over time. And it's probably not going to be the main way people aren't going to type into a search bar, they're going to type into Gemini, ChatGPT, things like that. But people also want to find out information other ways. So there's been a lot of talk about, are people using TikTok to understand where, what information about stuff, what's the best brands, makeup, clothes, all happening on TikTok as well. And yeah, Google have obviously started to shift in this direction as well. YouTube, again, if you talk to a rep recently, an account manager from Google, they're probably pushing you towards YouTube as much as they can. YouTube, they've also pushed a lot into shorts and the bidding options that are available in YouTube and the campaign options that are available in YouTube have increased over the last few years as well. Demand generation, again, you're probably getting this pushed on you by account managers as well. Does it work? Yeah, I think in some cases it does. PMAX also includes an upper funnel element to it. We found that a lot of ROAS-based clients with PMAX, it ends up pushing a lot really towards the shopping side of things, which is what you expect when you're on a ROAS target. Is it's going to look for the most efficient thing, and that's probably not going to be display or YouTube, but that's not really helping build your business if people are just comparing your price versus other people. They're just going to make a price-based choice, and that's not necessarily a brand-based choice. And then connected TV. So this is a relatively new thing, I think, over the last few months. When you launch a YouTube campaign now, you can now have a connected TV option in there within Google Ads. Obviously, connected TV has been around a while in things like DV360 and other third partners as well. But the fact that you can now do this in Google Ads is an interesting step forward. And it's also within Bing, they now have Netflix as well as an option. So yeah, Google are obviously trying to leverage some of the other tools they have to try and grow their market while search is potentially shrinking. I think there's some really interesting ones in here: demand gen, YouTube, connected TV, PMAX. Is that going to be the best brand generation tool? Probably not. So let's talk a little bit about these channels individually, what we've seen to work the most effectively, and how, if I was to build a brand from scratch, what would I be doing on each channel? So let's talk a little bit about creative. This is always a big talking point. Google will talk to you about this as well, is getting your creative right. Gone are the days where you just took your TV ad or your linear TV ad and you're like, right, here you go, here's YouTube, and that's the same thing. Now we're talking much more about user-generated content, and when it comes to YouTube Shorts, when it comes to vertical video, when it comes to short, snappy 6-second ads, those sort of 30-second long drawn-out TV ads are still relevant and are still useful for getting across a brand story and message. But alongside that, you need other creative types to make this work as well. So if you're going to launch a YouTube campaign, you absolutely want to make sure that you've got the full broad range of creative coverage in there. We found that much more effective than just, we get some clients who talk to us and they're like, we've got a TV ad, just put this on YouTube. It doesn't really work. Shorts, extremely effective. Not to talk about other channels on here, but also across Meta as well. Things like Reels, much more effective maybe than your standard video campaigns used to be as well. Then alongside that, I think an underutilized feature that we see when we sort of audit YouTube based clients is utilizing the product feed. They kind of maybe don't have a product feed set up, or they haven't thought about using a product feed within YouTube. Obviously, there's some benefits about pushing people further down the funnel there, showing them products that are relevant to them whilst they see a YouTube ad. So again, consider utilizing your product feed within your YouTube activity as well. Targeting, obviously, useful across the board, but have a think about the different targeting options available to you within YouTube. There's quite an array. Obviously, I think first port of call should be first party data if you have it. So if you can upload email lists, these are the best way to sort of utilize your audiences within YouTube. If you don't have that, I think keyword is a really good next step. So you can look at the terms that are performing best for you on Google Ads within your search campaigns, obviously. And then you can utilize these in YouTube and say, target people that are looking at keywords like this, topics like this. And then eventually you can start looking at maybe higher level up. If you've got a bigger budget, that is, look at more upper funnel, you know, people that are interested in things like my brand, people that are interested in things that are adjacent to my brand, that kind of thing. It depends how broad you want to get with your targeting. But yeah, the first protocol should always be first party data. There will be a bit of a theme of that in here. And then finally, budget. We see things, probably the thing that people miss out most on YouTube is getting the budget right. It's not a cheap platform to run unless you're geo-targeting to a really small area or a small area. If roughly we say, if you're targeting the whole of the UK, then you want to start with £30,000 a month. You can potentially go a bit cheaper than that, but that's sort of an ideal budget range. If you are targeting a small 50% of the country, for example, then obviously you can have a smaller budget and target 50%. But yeah, if you're going to tick along at, you know, like £50 a day on YouTube, that's essentially just wasted money, in my opinion. It's, yes, kind of those like go big or go home type of things, YouTube. Connected TV. So again, part of YouTube at the moment, in terms of when you set up a campaign, you have connected TV as an option. And again, this is maybe more where you can start to focus on the TV story-based type creative. So whereas YouTube, we're talking about shorter, snappier, get the point across activity. Connected TV, people are more forced to watch this, right? It's going to be on their TV, it's in front of them. And that means that you can afford to play around with the story of your brand. You can tell people who you are, what you do, why buy from us, what's our message, what's our ethos, that kind of thing. So you want to differ your creative between connected TV and YouTube. Again, utilize first-party data, geo-targeting, all of that sort of stuff. Make sure that you're reaching the right people in the right place. Trackable, again, this should be I'm going to come on to tracking more later, because again, it starts to get a bit murky as well once you get past sort of ROAS on a search campaign or a shopping campaign. And then finally, budget. So again, if you are using like a £30,000 budget, then that would probably be enough to encompass CTV as well. If you're running CTV on its own, you might want to think about even bigger budgets. And by the way, when I say CTV on its own, I mean outside of Google Ads, because it's not possible at the moment. But you might want to think about bigger budgets similar to a linear TV-based campaign as well. So demand gen. Not sure what's going on with my little GIF here. It's white for some reason. This was a nice demand gen based GIF. So just all imagine that right now. So demand gen, again, this is really less upper funnel, more mid funnel activity. It's getting people to think about, okay, this brand still exists. Why do they still, why are they still around? Like, why are they in my feed? That kind of thing. Should I be purchasing from them? It's considering next time I'm going to make a purchase, I've seen a demand gen ad. Again, budgets. I often get asked by clients, what sort of budget should I gen? I think Google's rule of thumb for this is quite good, to be honest. It's 10 times your CPA. And that's a good way to get started in terms of if you're speaking to your clients about it, and they ask the question, how much do I need to put into demand gen to make it effective? Give it time. We've seen demand gen campaigns take a lot more time to develop than maybe a shopping campaign would, whereas shopping might start to perform within a week if it's a high converting one. For demand gen, I would give it at least a month, and we've seen ROAS is improved to levels that actually, for some clients, that are only just above like a PMAX campaign. So it is possible to make demand gen extremely effective from a ROAS point of view, but give it time, give it that budget, and make sure you also have a strong lower funnel. So you want to be doing some of the stuff like Sean suggested, really. If you've got a good account like that, it's set up correctly, you've got broad, you've got, you know, a good shopping feed, things like that, then demand gen is going to push people towards making that more effective as well. I won't spend ages on this because Kate is going to do a much better version. So I will briefly talk about a little bit about bringing in new customers, but I won't spend too much time on it. You want to make sure that you understand the value of a new customer. So what are they worth compared to an existing customer? What's the lifetime value of them? How are we going to re-engage new customers? Have you got a plan for that? Offers, you know, are you willing to offer more to new customers than existing customers? How are you going to drive them to the site in the first place? And then customer data, which I think will make up the majority of what I'm going to talk about next. So in terms of, let's say you've got a good upper funnel basis now, you've got your YouTube running, you've got some good demand gen activity, then you want to focus on, right, are we capturing this lower down the funnel? Because this all goes to waste, right? If somebody knows what product you sell and then they search and your competitor's ad is right at the top. So, you know, should I be running branded search is a question I get a lot. And the answer is, yeah, maybe. Do you rank well organically? If the answer is no, then yeah, you probably need to start considering brand search. Do you have competition on your brand? So if no one else is bidding on your brand, then yeah, you might not need it as much. Is your brand name a generic term as well? So if you are called like, I don't know, nice shirts, then chances are people might search for that anyway, in which case you want to have make sure that your brand terms are there, make sure that your brand generics are covered as well. So if people are searching for, you know, Nike running shoes, that's a brand generic because running shoes is a generic term. And that means that people are going to start getting served things like Hoka on as well. Make sure you're retargeting. Again, there's a whole load of retargeting that you can do across Meta, across programmatic, across the GDN. Personally, I don't think I'm going to recommend GDN to anyone here at the moment. It's a bit of a waste of money, to be honest. But you know, if that's sort of you're working with smaller clients, right, and they probably can't go for a full programmatic DV360 campaign, yeah, consider using maybe GDN as a light retargeting option for those people. And yeah, definitely across Meta as well. Like Facebook is a great tool to show people products that they've already seen, show them, yeah, catalog products, things like that. And then obviously, as I mentioned, organic, push your SEO teams, right? Make sure that you are appearing for a top of your branded terms, your key products, you know, PPC, SEO, famous friends. So yeah, make sure that you're speaking to them and going, right, our branded activity that we're running on YouTube focuses on these 5 products. Where do we rank for these 5 products when it comes to organic searches? Then a source of truth. So again, a lot of clients we speak to have the place like, oh, we look at Facebook over here and we look at Google over here and we look at some results in the back end over here in Shopify, and you know, we mix it all together and we get these massive results and it doesn't make sense. So I think agree with a client, whoever you're speaking to first, in terms of how are we going to measure the effectiveness of this upper funnel activity, because a lot of it isn't going to drive the ROAS of a shopping campaign. It's not going to be as effective as PMAX. So step 1 in making this all work and all be effective is to make sure that, yeah, we've got a single source of truth. It's all in one place, and then we can begin to measure. So then we get on to incremental. So hopefully this isn't like a new way of thinking for people. But incremental, the way we think about this and the way we talk about this with our clients is a lot of this stuff isn't as measurable as your standard search campaigns. You might get things like impressions, view-throughs on Google Ads, things like that. But it's not going to be looked like a direct ROAS return, in which case, how are we set up to run incremental performance and see what the benefit of running these campaigns was? So there's multiple ways you could do this. You could run like a geolocation test. So for example, we've just done with a client recently, we basically split the country in half. 50% performs exactly the same as the other 50. And we say, we're going to run all this activity on the 50%, and we're going to run none of this upper funnel activity on the other 50%. What's the uplift on the area where we're running the activity? So in an ideal world, the uplift is, let's say you uplift overall revenue by 5%, then you've got a ROAS of your activity. So if you spent 100K to get 5% additional uplift, you can start to work out the ROAS. It might show opposite, and then you can say, well, yeah, it's not worth running like this branding activity here in this place because it's not working for us, and actually, we just need to focus on lower down the funnel, less sort of incremental activity. But what I would, because probably a lot of you in this room have accounts that are in really solid places right now and they're really effective, and clients will be asking, what's next? What we're going to do next? How are you going to make us grow more? And this is the type of conversation you'll be having, is like, yeah, we've nailed it. We've absolutely nailed your PPC, your PMAX, your searches. Great. Now let's start doing some of this. Customer data. So once you have started to win these new customers, these incremental customers, how do we know what they're going to do next? So we ran a really interesting project with our data science team, which was understanding customer data by clustering these customers, which is a mouthful to say. But essentially what we did was, these, when they bought certain products, what did that mean about what they did next? So for example, in this case, they came to the website. This is anonymized, that's why they didn't buy product A, that's just a thing. But they came to the website, they bought product A, they then went to subcategory B, and they were male. So what does that mean? Because all other customers that do that behave a very similar way. So we know that if they do that, for example, then 80% chance that they're going to buy full price. There's an 82% chance they're going to buy a winter-based product, so it's a seasonal-based product. They have a high average order value. They choose own brand rather than third-party brands. And yeah, they're going to be male, so that obviously makes sense most of the time, unless people are buying a gift. There's some other interesting information in there. For example, they only purchase once every 12 months. So there's two bits of information that you could use there. They either buy once every 12 months because that's all they're ever going to do, or you're not reaching out to them or providing other options for them during the summer months. So you can make two decisions here. You can say, once these customers have bought, we're never going to show them any ads for another 12 months because we know they're only going to come back next year. Or we say to them, we need to encourage these people to buy more. So we try and find products that they will buy in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time. So once you've started to get these customers in from your branding activity, it's then understanding what they're going to do next. And understanding their behavior will also help you feed back into that loop of building a brand. Because once you know how customers are behaving, you can then offer them things in your branding that is similar to things that they would resonate with. So obviously, if we know that these people are more likely to buy own brand, we don't want to be showing them a third-party brand. We want to be showing them adverts with our own brand in, and we want to be showing them we want to show them our own brand in winter, and we want to make sure only men are getting this particular advert. So it should eventually create a bit of a life cycle in terms of, you get people in at the top and you begin to understand them once they've made decisions on your website, and that will feed who you want to target to get in at the top again, because then we can make decisions about, if, for example, they only ever bought on discount, is it worth trying to drive more of that type of customer? Or is that really low margin? They're only after a discount, in which case, yeah, that was a complete waste of time. Let's try and focus on these customers that are only going to be buying full price. They're going to buy our own brand. It's high margin, high effective product. So this is the type of thing that we would be looking to put together for a client to try and get them to sort of engage with this type of thing, because it's scary for a lot of clients, right? They're used to this money in, money out based marketing type of activity. And what we want to try and say to them is, okay, yes, we've got this in a good place, but if we were to look beyond that and we were to look at doing some of this activity, starting a YouTube campaign, where do we think you would get to? And it's basically a forecast, but this forecast is measuring uplift based on expected results. So we would say if we drove this amount more sessions, and these sessions often convert at this rate, you can begin to put together a forecast of, okay, we're going to get more people to site, more people will convert at this rate. That's going to be your overall total uplift. We think it's worth investing this because your ROAS will be this. And that will help sort of get past some of those, it's not going to be easy, but it will help you get past some of those challenges of, you know, it's all wishy-washy. We don't want to put money into YouTube because how do we know it's going to return anything, that kind of thing.